Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we need to head to the station here, of course, and we need to drop our thrust limiter down to 10% for each of these, otherwise we're just going to have way too much thrust. But 10% is definitely a good amount for orbital maneuvers, so we'll just put this right about here. Otherwise, we can just warp on forward about an hour and a half. So that'll be absolutely fine. We'll do exactly that. Fantastic. And now we are about 1 minute away from our burn. 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Off we go to the station. Of course, we've got two payloads that we want to that we want to implement on the station. They should be relatively simple, although space for one will be a little squishy. We'll see how that ends up going. It's on the robotic arm. We can move it around quite a lot, so that should be fine. And we actually don't care about the rotation of it, so it should be a fairly simple installation, in theory. Okay, getting this last little bit done, that'll do. We'll put this on kill rot. This is good enough. How are we looking? Okay, so 4.9 kilometers. Yep, that looks absolutely fine. Let's warp about here. And we're going to switch ourselves into target modes. Okay, what's our relative velocity going to be? 128.6. I'm going to do our first burn out this direction. So we need to pull this node. This is going to be increasing our relative speed to our target. Just a small corrective burn out over here. About here or so. Okay, it's not perfect, definitely. Maybe move it out over this way a tiny bit, but something kind of like that. That moves us into 1.4 kilometers. Looks good, and let's warp forward a little ways. Next, of course, we're going to be going in the negative side. So that's fine. The station is currently 11 kilometers away. Let's get rotated around before it loads in. That would be problematic. Okay, so now we need to push this node onto the other node. So we're going to push the retrograde node onto the anti-target node from about here or so. How's that looking? 0.2 kilometers. That's close enough. Fantastic. Good corrective burns. So we're 141.9 meters per second apart right now. That means we want to start this burn. It seems like it's about 10 meters per second, or about 10 meters per meter per second. I know that probably doesn't make sense, but what I'm saying is we want to start this at about 1,420 kilometers, or rather meters away. Kilometers would be quite a distance, but no. About 1.4 kilometers away. This is going to load in shortly. Also, goodbye frame rate. It's very sad. Very, very sad indeed. But we're just going to let this come in. I'm going to burn a little earlier. I'm going to round this up to 1.5 kilometers. And that is a conservative estimate, absolutely. This is going to be too fast. We're going to be decelerating too quickly. But we can bring this down from here to about 10 meters per second as our relative speed. Maybe it's not decelerating too fast. Hang on. Something feels different. Maybe our thrust to weight is lower. But, we're going to be overshooting here. That's fine. It's not the end of the world, but it's definitely not ideal. I mean, we're not going to impact the station, so it's all good. But we're definitely going to overshoot. Wow. Okay, so this one is feeling a little different than the others. Maybe it's something to do with thrust to weight. Maybe this payload is just a little heavier than what we're used to. That's a possibility, for sure. We've still got about 60 meters per second to go here. So, yeah. That's definitely a little much, but that's okay. We're down to 50 meters per second. This feels like a very low thrust to weight compared to what we usually have, so I don't know. It's all back of the envelope calculations, right? So, not even back of the envelope. It's just in my head right now. Okay, so we're bringing this down to a halt for the moment. We're going to have to get closer, of course. And then we're going to have to... I think we want to install the Leonardo first. So I'm just noting this here. Okay. Just going to do something like that. Okay, let's burn towards target at this point. And we'll get this flipped around. And let's move in at somewhere around 10 meters per second. Somewhere around there. Okay, now this is a lot of meters per second to try to move our velocity with RCS. It does move a little bit, but let's not do that for the moment. Let's get this flipped around, because we're going to want to use our engines to brake here, not RCS at 10 meters per second. But we can just get this flipped around. We're coming into the station, and we're going to need to, of course, deploy our payloads, or one of our payloads for right now. The other payload is not going to be deployed. And hopefully they haven't broken. That would be mildly awkward. We can definitely open up our cargo bay, and we have a little bit of time here. So let's have Bill, EVA. And Bill is going to come over here. We're going to grab this strut. Temporarily, I'm going to store it here. And I believe that's the only strut holding Leonardo in. So we'll do that. You can hop back in. And now I want to grab this guy. Ooh, this traverse rate is going to be really high. Let's turn that traverse rate down a little bit. And we want to set a target angle of 0. Yeah, that is because the traverse rate was too high. That's fine. The rest of this is looking pretty decent, though, all things considered. Now, to be clear, we're going to need to extend this, for sure. But we're going to want to not install it at this angle, I don't think. We're going to have to figure out where we want the angle to be to install it. But this is definitely going to be clipping in over here, so we're just going to bump this target extension up to be about here or so. And I want to check in on how we're doing over this way. Okay, we definitely need to... Relative velocity minus, please. We definitely need to be slowing down here. Okay. So we're about 4 meters per second apart. Let's just wait until we're a little closer to relative velocity minus. We're not turning very quickly, though. This doesn't have fuel in it, does it? Actually, this does. Okay, that's probably what the thrust to weight issue was. That's fine. We can actually pull the fuel out of it, but it was not intended to have fuel in this tank. That's almost certainly what the problem was. Okay, so now we need to figure out where we're docking it, and the answer is this docking port right here is where we're going to be docking it. So now the question is simply one of logistics. How do we get the shuttle into that space? Right? We've brought it down to a halt, which is all well and good, but if we look at the station out over here, we can see there is a very limited amount of space there. So I think that we really do want this to be on a 90-degree angle, which ends up meaning that we're going to have to turn this to be a 90-degree angle. Right there. And then this guy, well, we're going to need to extend this arm, for sure. This is going to extend out to maximum extension for the time being. Then this is going to angle on over to 90 degrees. And that's going to take it some time at this traverse rate. We'll bump up the traverse rate a little bit to like 10. Sure, that's fine. Okay. So this is how we're planning on installing it, but we should probably rotate this guy from 90 to negative 90. Because I'd rather come in on this side. Okay, this is going to be mildly awkward here. Yeah, we'll have to let the arm settle a bit. That'll take it some time. There's a lot of weight up in here, of course, and I'd like to remove that weight, so we're just going to pull that fuel into the rest of the shuttle. That fuel will eventually get vented and was a complete waste, but that's fine. We're just going to remove the weight from here for now. We don't want the mass to be there. Okay, so that gets removed. It is now empty. Perfect. So now there's a lot less weight in here. And we'll just have to let this guy settle in. That will take some time. In fact, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to freeze physics right there. And then we'll come out of the physics freeze. And it should be less extreme anyway. Okay, Bill, I want you to EVA. And we're going to need to stabilize this thing, obviously. So what I want to do is I want to grab this strut that we placed here just for this purpose. And we're going to move this up, but do we want it? It doesn't actually matter what angle we have this at. As long as it's, you know, quasi-reasonable. So something like that should be fine. Okay, so now what we need to do is make our way in. And we have a couple of options for in. For now, let's just go around until our cockpit faces the target. But we're going to have to go over to the left a little bit for sure. I'm pretty sure our wingspan will be okay to fit between these, but if not, we can change our angling. This is the benefit of having this on the robotic arm, for sure. Okay, so we would want to rotate around over this direction. And we'd want to head into this at a very, very low rate, right? So at this point, what I want to do is just position ourselves about here or so, a little further. About here. Actually, still a little further. About here. Okay. Then I want to engine our way in at perhaps 2 meters per second. No, that's way too much. We're going to go 0.5 meter per second. RCS on, and let's adjust that. And then we're going to need to go off to the right a decent amount here, because we need to hit this gap, right? We need to not go directly here, because otherwise we'll impact the cupola module, which we don't want to do. We need to go off to the right a fair amount. So that seems absolutely fine. We'll go off to the right at about 0.2 meters per second or so. There, that'll do. Now, I want to put us in kill rot here. I'm okay with us drifting off of this angle. Okay. We're eyeballing where we are here. We're pretty close to where we need to be. So I'm bringing us back over this way a bit. I am a little bit concerned about our wingspan here, but we'll see. I think the wingspan will be broadly okay. I think we've overshot on the right a little bit, so we're going to bring it back to the left. Yeah, I think it's pretty clear we've overshot on the right. Let's bring it back to the left ever so slightly. To about here or so in terms of velocity. Yeah. And then we'll just bring this back to being straight ahead fairly soon. So I'm just lining up this area here. I want a little more velocity out to the right. There we go. And of course, this whole time we're heading in directly ahead towards the target. So that's absolutely okay. Still a little bit more drift to the right, I think, is necessary here. Okay, let's bring this to a halt about here. All we want to do is hit this gap, right? The real question is wingspan. We might have to come in rotated, and if we do, we'll have to rotate this. You know, it's probably best if we do anyway. So what that ends up meaning is Bill should EVA. We are going to unstrut this temporarily. I think that this is not the direction to come in at after having looked at it. So we'll just put this strut up over here as soon as the game gets caught up. Okay. Heading back over here, and we're going to set this target angle to 0. We'll just have a lot less space constraints doing it this way. I'm going to unextend this guy, and this guy only in this direction needs to be extended to about 0.5. So that will have our mass offset be a little bit on the lower side. Back over to Bill. And once that gets into position, we're going to want to re-strut that. So let me grab that strut. And we're going to position it here. Let's wait for this to swing back. Okay. And we'll just strut it about like that. So we'll just hold it firm there. And that allows us to come in... Oh, RCS off. In this direction instead. I think... we'll have a little bit more space coming in this direction. But obviously, we're going to have to go a little that way. Let's just get our wings slightly more lined up. More or less lined up, I guess. But that definitely means that we're going to need to go, from our current perspective, down a little bit. And hopefully we'll have the space here. I think we will. It will be a tight fit. No doubt about it. But I think this is a better angle to come in at. We shouldn't be impacting this because our wings are further back, so it should be okay. I'm like 95% certain that we're going to be okay here. Make that about 45% certain. It's going to be interesting. No doubt about it. Let's get a little bit closer here. Okay. Let's get rid of this. I guess we could call it vertical momentum at this point. It's all based on frame of reference, right? But we can just go straight ahead right now. And we may end up impacting something. But we'll see. It's going to be really close. I'm actually concerned about the angle this is sitting at. Oh, we impacted. Okay, that was abrupt. I think that was a problem. Okay, we need to go off to the left here. This direction. Hang on. This direction. We're a little too high at this moment, and we're kind of caught between these. The warp there was a little deceptive. We appear to be potentially stuck here. Okay, I'm going to stop trying to do that, and we are instead going to attempt to roll our way out of this. So we need to roll... Hang on. How are we wedged in here? How did we get in this spot? I think this is just a time warp issue. How did we get here? Okay, first things first. We are going to have Bill EVA. Yeah, this is almost certainly a time warp issue, but this does prove that we barely have the space to do this. It is indeed as close as I thought it would be, but we do have the space to do it. Okay, so first things first, we're going to remove this strut temporarily. We're going to hop back to the shuttle. This is the shuttle. Okay. And I want to make sure that this is at no extension whatsoever. This one and this one. We need all the space we can work with at this time. That was likely quite helpful. Okay. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. We have so little room here. And I'm just thinking about our wing position. Okay, I think that we do actually need to put this back in the original orientation. So I'm going to back this off just a smidge so we have a little bit of room to work with here. And we're going to need to rotate this back. So I'm going to turn the RCS off at this time, and we're going to start attempting to rotate in this direction. Because I think we'll have a little bit more room if we do it like this. Our wings are not currently impacting, although the cargo bay will. The cargo bay does need to get closed here. Before that happens, I want this guy to get rotated up to 90 degrees. That is clearly necessary at this time. Now, this is likely going to impact over here, but I want to continue to roll this way. We just have so little space. Okay. About like this. Noted. Okay, so backup plan. Here is the backup plan. This is going to be an interesting one for sure. So we need to get a little bit more space here. We need to let this go, I think, up a little bit. So we're going to... Oh, this is Bill. Bill, you can hop back in. Actually, Bill shouldn't yet. What I'm going to do is going to be a little bit awkward here. Can we please get Bill out? Thank you, Bill. Okay. So Bill's going to get out here, and we're going to strut this into place. This is going to be very awkward indeed, but we do have a way to do this. It's just going to be a more complicated way. So we're going to do this number. There we go. That is now strutted into place. Now I want to pull back from the station a little bit. Something about like that. Just a small amount of backwards momentum so that we don't clip this. And I'm going to get rid of that vertical momentum at this time. Okay. Now, back at the station. We've got this cupola module here, which actually has a reaction wheel. And 200 electric charge. So, we have a use for Valentina. Valentina is going to EVA here. And Valentina is going to hop down to the cupola module. And she is going to, quote-unquote, pilot the cupola module. And then we're going to undock this down over here. These struts are going to be interesting, but we'll restrut them afterwards. It should be absolutely fine. So we're just going to grab here, and we're going to board. Then I'm going to undock this section. Like this. Now, okay, these are all on the module itself. Sounds good. Okay, so next, we know that this is the one that we want to control from, and we know that this needs to be our target. So I'm going to point at target. We have a reaction wheel on this, so we can actually do this. Okay, so we point at target here. Then we go to our shuttle. We control from here. RCS off for the moment. And let's point at target. Okay, this is going to be only mildly awkward. No doubt about it. But this does function remarkably. Remarkably. So at this point, I want to nose us up. Hang on. What direction is nosing up from this orientation? That would be this way. Okay, gotcha. I want to nose us up to be approximately at the same angle as this. So about a little further. About here. Okay. Next, we're going to RCS towards target. And we're going to have to adjust our angle quite a lot, our vector of velocity. That's fine. We're going to head in towards target, and once we can see our forward vector here, there we go. Now we can adjust this. Okay, towards target. Looks good. Yeah, we should be fine to dock this, and then we'll re-dock this component. This is a very tight space here. In reality, this would have been done with the Canadarm. Unfortunately, due to the limitations of the Kerbal Space Program systems, we can't do that. We can't dock an object to the same object that the arm is attached to. It just doesn't work. I wish it did, but it doesn't. Okay, so we're just heading in here. This is definitely a very awkward way to do things, but it does function. So I'm coming in at about 0.4 meters per second right now, which is maybe a little on the high end. But that's okay. I want to get a little closer here. Let's just warp in ever so slightly. Okay. Changing our momentum here and doing a little bit of braking. 0.3. Let's bring this down to about 0.2. And changing our vector. That should do. And this should be a clean dock. Docking force is moving it. And we are docked. Excellent. Next, we need to figure out our directionality here because we are moving relative to the station quite a lot. I want to set this as our target. Yeah, we're currently heading into the station, and we need to brake. We're doing what we can on that. We're down to 0.4. 0.3. This is a lot of mass. That's for sure. 0.2. 0.1. Okay, this is going to have to do. So, now we run into a similar problem to what we had before, but it's not quite the same problem. So now we need to figure out how we want to dock this monstrosity to the station with the Kerbal module here. We may have to undock the Kerbal module and redock that. That is a possibility. We'll see how that ends up going, but that is a next episode problem. We'll see how we end up doing that. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Andy McGar, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12UK, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.